The difference between boring and realistic renders is in the details. To prove it, I made these 3 renders, each with and without decoration. I will show you the difference later in this video. For the decoration, in this case I am using my new asset pack, 127 hand-modeled and textured industrial models, based mostly on what I, as a CG artist, needed over the years. Here we have lighting facilities, pipes, cables, electrical boxes, metal structure fences, mechanical parts, as well as large structures and other. It only took me a few hours to create each of these 3 artworks, and the secret of fast work is that I do most of the works with the assets beforehand. Let's quickly go through all 3 renders. In the first case, I started with a cube that should be a garage with a door through which light passes, and the light comes from the unemissive cube. The rest of the work is scattering the assets into the scene. In this case, I use only the industrial decoration pack. This is before and this is after. In the second case, from the modeling work I only have the base of the gas station, and the lights consist of several area lamps and a volumetric cube. The trees in the background and a shop are also from my packages that I created earlier. It looks quite empty, but after decorating with the industrial decoration pack, it looks much better. In the third render, the background consists of buildings from my editing buildings pack, plus 2 shops and several neon signs, also from my packages I created earlier. The rest is from the industrial decoration package. So, with the quality assets in the asset browser, you do most of the work before you even start creating the scene. But how do you create an asset package such as industrial decoration? In fact, you don't need to create asset packs at all. You can download everything I created over the last few years in the links in the description, or find similar packs from other creators in the many places on the internet. The only important thing is that you have good assets on hand. However, knowing modeling and texturing techniques has its advantages. For example, you can create assets that don't exist on the internet, you can make money by selling assets, and as a content creator, I like to use my own assets. It creates a great sense of creativity for me. But let's take a look what the process of creating the industrial decoration assets look like. For assets to be realistic, they need to be based on real photos. All 127 assets I created are based on real photos. Good preparation is the key to create a large number of models. So I first made 5 collages in which I put as many images as possible that I would later use as textures and references. Why collage? It is easier to work with 5 files than, for example, 120, and I can always use another part of the photo later in the UV editor. Plus, the entire asset package is smaller and more optimized. But you are probably wondering why I'm using a low resolution textures, often at a bad angle, instead of a high quality PBR textures. I will try to explain with a practical example. This is a 3D model of lamp that I modeled based on this photo. If I project the same photo from the camera angle onto the model, it immediately looks realistic, even with all the stretched textures. In the second example, I use high resolution PBR textures from ambientcg.com. You will agree that it looks less realistic and more like game assets, even though I am using 4 maps and a lot more data. The different textures were photographed under different lighting conditions, and we lost all the imperfections that a regular lamp photo contains. it looks exactly as it is, a repeating metal texture without any imperfection. Of course, the first method requires a lot of fixes in the UV editor, and it is necessary to create multiple variations of the material, in this example glass and emissive. The model is not intended to be super close to the camera, but it looks realistic if we step back a little. In this way, all 127 models use the same 5 textures, from which I created a large number of shaders. For example, some are brightened, some are more rough, combined with glass or emissive shaders, etc. But all are based on only 5 photo textures. The whole package needs to be lightweight and optimized, and this method helps with that. It is clear that the textures I am using aren't the best quality, so I decided to take 2 steps to add more details. First, I added a concrete texture to the roughness, bump and partially to the color input. The concrete texture has a high resolution and creates a lot of detail. Before that, it is necessary to separate the UV maps so that they do not affect the color input. The dust shader is the second step to add detail and make everything more compact. I created a node group that goes into the color input and adds the color of choice as an overlay and use the following as a factor. More dust goes to the upper parts of the objects. The dust depends on the camera angle. The lower we are, the more dust we see, a similar effect as in reality. Dust collects more on the parts such as creases, holes, gaps and parts that intersect with each other. Sounds almost like a definition of ambient occlusion. A little noise variation for imperfections is always good. All of this is mixed together in the right proportions and used as a factor. The result is fairly realistic dust shader. If we save it as a node group, we can easily add dust to any model and make them look like they are from the same space. Although I plan to include a few modeling tips in this video, I gave up on that because the video would have to be too long and people avoid watching long videos. But I have good news for those of you who are interested in more. I recorded the whole process of modeling and texture in several models and posted them on Patreon and YouTube Join. With one subscription, you can also download my other tutorials and all of the assets created in the last few years. Finally, I'm thinking of making a more detailed video about one of these 3 artworks. You can write in the comments which one interests you the most.